So today, we'll be diving in. This last month this Sunday collective was looking at metta, one of the Brahma Viharas. And so there's metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, upekkha, equanimity, and then what's called sympathetic joy or mudita. And I'll be talking a little bit about sympathetic joy, but kind of just joy in general. But I will also say that, the world is kind of always on fire. Since the Buddha's time, 2,000 years ago, it was on fire. But wow, right now, right? Like I have an aunt and two cousins in Lebanon, in Beirut. 2 years ago, I was in the refugee camps in eastern Chad of Darfuri refugees. And that whole situation, I heard someone the other day say, it seems things are, getting worse before they get worse, right? Uh, and I probably to shatter any joy in anyone's heart, I could just say election, right? And that probably, I want to preface with there's a lot going on, and this is in no means meant to be Pollyanna, like, oh, we can stick our heads in the sand and just be joyful. It's not meant to be that way or to come across that way. In fact, with so much going on, it's that much more important that we do have joy in our hearts. We really need it in order to turn towards the world, to be with all these things. This is what one teacher, Jill Shepherd, said. It's precisely because there's so much suffering in the world that I've needed to make the effort to turn towards non-suffering, towards gladness or joy, in order to restore myself so that I can face life's challenges. So it's really important. It's such an important part of our practice. And we feel, as we practice, as we become, more mindful, we feel both. We feel the sorrows, but hopefully it also makes room in our hearts for the joy that's all around us too, in the midst of the sorrows. And just to check in, everybody in the back, I'm sure can hear me okay with the speakers. Great. And everybody online can still hear? Great. So I want to talk about that with all of you, and then I want to hear people's thoughts on how they're cultivating joy too. But a lot of what I'm going to share today, most of it is nothing new. These are ways that I've been practicing with it, but it's helpful to have reminders, right? Reminders. We were practicing together, Christina and Yi and I at the canyon yesterday, and we talked about this, that the proximate cause of mindfulness is mindfulness. The more we are mindful, the more it arises in our lives, right? And the same thing is true with joy. The more we are able to open to it when it's here, the more we make space for it in our lives. And I just thought of this. We have our kitchen knives in our kitchen, and for like months, my wife is like, "Oh, we need to sharpen those." And the other day, she's like, me saying that we need to sharpen them doesn't really get them sharp, does it? And so in the same way, saying that we want joy or chasing after joy or chasing after peace and freedom does not create peace and freedom in our lives. Actually, first and foremost, being with what's here, being present with what is in this heart and mind right now, and then seeing what are the seeds that cultivate joy, or how do we notice the ways that it arises in our lives. So we'll talk about that, and also to hold it lightly, right? Joy comes and joy goes. We want it to stay, but it comes and it goes. So I think that's part of it too, is allowing ourselves to feel all of it. Actually, after our time yesterday at the canyon, I had as many of you know, dukkha is the word for suffering in Buddhism, and I had a dukkha fest in the afternoon. I had this call, and something happened where I felt like I really was not being a good dad and I dropped the ball. And then another thing and another thing. I was like, oh man, where's the joy? I'm supposed to be talking about this tomorrow. So we have, we can't just create joy. When we have those moments that are really painful, we have to be with those too. In the teachings, it's the Buddha said we have to be penetrated by whatever's here. We have to take it in, allow it to touch us, and it makes room for all of it. So for just a minute, we'll touch on more kind of the Buddhist kind of background and teachings around it. So mudita is one of the Brahmaviharas, and it's said that these qualities are abundant, exalted, immeasurable. It means the more we have them, the more they grow. We don't have to worry about them running out. They're there. They're these wells in which we can draw from. And it's also this feedback loop, right? Like the more we turn towards it, the more it is available in our lives. Again, not always, but it's there. It's often translated as sympathetic joy. Like in our practice, hopefully you touched into this when we pictured our friend, this person. It's this shared joy. I almost like the term radiant joy better. Sympathetic's kind of clumsy, right? It's a weird translation. But a radiant joy, it touches many hearts, many ways in which we're in the world. And I also think, it doesn't have to be fireworks. It doesn't have to be, in fact, what's called the near enemy of joy. It looks like joy, smells like joy, tastes like joy, but it's not as exuberant, this kind of bubbling up energy, because it's not sustainable. So to me, I'll talk more about it, but those little moments of joy, the more subtle, quiet joys, not the fireworks, those are really wonderful to cultivate in our lives. They're kind of these seeds that we're planting. In the words of John O'Donohue, the poet, he said, "When a great moment knocks on the door of your life, its sound is often no louder than the beating of your heart, and it's very easy to miss it." We have a lot of these moments. Even yesterday, I was remembering this quote after, the phone call and this other stuff, and I saw his son playing basketball with his dad. And I waved to somebody, and I was like, oh, those are moments of joy. I can take those into, even as my heart is heavy with these other things. So I'm going to touch on a couple different ways that I've kind of been working with joy. And one I would call like joy through the middle way. Again, it's not these fireworks. It's more about balance in our lives. There's this phrase in Buddhism called the bliss of blamelessness, which is about as unsexy as it gets, right? It's like, oh, okay, that is a type of bliss. And it actually is an important type of bliss. But this is more like the joy of non-agitation. Actually, this contentment, can we touch into those moments of joy? I left it at home. I had this list of these Japanese phrases that I read some years back, and it's so great. I'm reading a book by Pico Iyer actually right now. It's about Japan, and it's these collection of little phrases and stories. Such a unique place, and it's such a unique language. I don't remember all of them, but one was like something miwaku, and it's the state of looking far worse after a haircut, which which I love. They have a word for that. The other one was a word, and it was something like when someone asked you to do a favor that you didn't want them to do, but they did it anyways, and social convention requires you to thank them for this. But the last one was, and I don't remember the word, but it's eating because our mouth is lonely. And I love that. It's like, oh, we do that. We're on autopilot. another Dorito, another chip, whatever it is. With news, right, or the internet, sometimes we just take it in. Next thing we know, like a half an hour has gone. We've all done that, right? And so this question of how much is enough, if we don't know the purpose of what we're doing, why we're doing it, our intention, then it's easy to get lost and take in too much. And again, this is nothing new. Probably everyone in this room, in your rooms, has grappled with this, but what are we taking in? Recently, I used to listen to the news in the morning. I'm like, actually, I'm gonna switch to like just 5-10 minutes BBC on my phone, and I'll adjust that. But yeah, how much are we taking in? Or when I go on a walk at night with my pooch, I actually leave my phone at home. I'm like, okay, oh my God, I'm so addicted to this thing, right? Or I use it so much. So really being thoughtful about how much we're taking in, especially now around the elections, and not just eating because the mouth is lonely, right? Another way in which to access joy, I think, is I would call the joy of tenacity, just coming back again and again to these little moments. Suzuki Roshi, I think, said something like, enlightenment is an accident. Meditation makes you accident prone. It's going to happen, perhaps, but not of our own accord. It will arise. And the same thing with joy. It comes, it goes. But when it does come, can we turn towards it? In our there's a couple other groups that I'm involved with, and one of them, there's this lovely couple, Cheryl and Alan, who are like Dharma lovebirds. They met through the meditation practice, but they introduced me to this practice. I'll just call it the practice of delight. They read it. I don't know the source, but whenever you notice something of delight, you actually lift your finger and note delight. When it was so great. I saw oh my God, my 16-year-old son, he like fell asleep on the couch. He's like hair disheveled, wearing his tank top. And I walked down in the morning, like the TV's on, the lights are on. I'm like, oh my God, who is this? But it was so sweet, just his there being asleep and this moment of me like taking that in. So, lift the finger, delight, just that little moment. Driving down the freeway, concrete freeway, and looking off to the right with these beautiful pink flowers this morning. Oh, delight. It's a beautiful practice. I really invite you to try it, even for like a day. Just that lifting that finger and noting there's something about that, right, that allows us to take it into our heart, to really take it in. And then lastly, I would call the joy of letting go, which much easier said than done, but just allowing things to change and know that they will change. Well, this was quite a long time ago, but my older son, who's 22, he was really young, and my parents had brought him a Lego. And so he's in there playing with the Lego. It was for like his birthday or Christmas or something. And he's playing with the Lego, and my dad walks through the room and he says, oh, actually, my son said to him, oh, thank you so much for this gift. Very sweet. And my dad said, oh, we like to give you gifts, Jack, because you're such a good boy. And he like cold, looked him in the eyes, and he's like, yes, sometimes, but not always. And I love that's like a mantra, right? With everything in our lives, sometimes, but not always. So knowing that too, it's almost like that delight. You're noticing it, you're noting it, but know that it's going to change. We had this beautiful day at the canyon, and then literally the moment I step out was this really a challenging situation. Oh yeah, that too. Just because we turn towards joy and it's more accessible doesn't mean it's going to be there every moment. That too, it's part of the adventure of life, right? Yeah, and there's something in this too when we let go of it. It's something that's maybe I think it's less self-centered, right? A lot of this practice is getting out of our own way. I think about this with I haven't done it in a while, but I did hospice work for many years. And for those of you, probably a lot of people in this room are familiar with it. It's amazing how much laughter and joy and smiles there is amongst the tears and the sorrows, you know? And I think part of that is because it's focused on each other. You know, the nurses and the chaplains who are doing this hard work, they're doing it in community. And we're doing this in community, right? So I think there's something about letting joy go that's less self-centered. The Dalai Lama said something like, "When you base your joy on the joy of others, you increase your chances from 1 to 7 billion," which are a good way to look at it. And so again, you know, these things, this, you know, these moments of delight, or even when you're having a moment of joy, of holding it lightly, also the joy of non-agitation, of how much is enough. You know, this is not rocket science, right? But they're really powerful tools that we can use to bring more joy into our life, and how important it is. How important it is. The Buddha said something like, whatever one frequently ponders upon, this becomes the inclination of mind. We do that with our breath, our body, coming back to center, but we also do it with joy and kindness and happiness. So I'll end with a little, excerpt from an op-ed that Margaret Renkel wrote some time ago. You know, and she's referencing this world that's on fire, climate change, wars, all these things. She says, in this troubled world, it would be a crime to snuff out any flicker of happiness that somehow leaps into life. We are creatures built for joy. At the very saddest funerals, we can hear a funny story about our lost loved one, and God help us, we laugh. We can stagger out of an appointment where a person in a white coat has given us the news we think we cannot bear to hear, and still we smile at the baby in the checkout line clapping her chubby hands at the balloons by the cash register, or kicking her feet in joy at a stranger's smile. This is who we are, the very best of who we are. The world is burning, and there is no time to put down the water buckets. For just an hour, put down the water buckets anyways. Take your cue from the bluebirds who have no faith in the future, but who build the future nevertheless, leaf by leaf and straw by straw, shaping them and turning them into a sheltering roundness, perfectly fitted to the contours of the future they are making. Turn your face up to the sky, listen. The world is shivering into possibility. The world is reminding us that this is what the world does best: new life, rebirth, the greenness that rises out of ashes. So thank you so much for your kind attention.